Back in her own base, Stillknight continued working on her inventions. It was nice to be back after spending so much time with the Autobots recently. She found the silence and the shimmering of the Icona calming. While she enjoyed being with the Autobots, there were many sounds and activities. She found herself drawn to the calm of being in the peaceful base and tending to her garden or tinkering with her inventions. Stillknight had brought the little indigo plant from the shrine chamber to her base. It was curious because she was unable to simply set it in her garden. The plant would accept her touch, but the other plants would react as though it was unfamiliar to them. The small plant had a small well that collected some of the energon it produced. It sat near where she worked. Every now and then, it would reach out to her, and she would offer it her hand in comfort. She had evaluated the indigo plant and found it was a different species of icona. It was more ancient, and without the icona biodiversity on Earth, speciation had occurred between this plant and those on Icona. They were similar enough for Stillknight to still bond to them, but the plants struggled to bond with each other. Stillknight logged what she had learned in a message she sent to Valtoris, Icona's guardian. Stillknight was still monitoring human and Cybertronian communications all around Earth. As a result, an alarm interrupted the peaceful base. Stillknight went over to the main communication center and heard the human radio calls. "Giant robots are attacking. We need assistance immediately. We have men down." The last transmission was cut off prematurely. Stillknight opened the exit to her base and took flight. She transformed into a stealthy Cybertronian flying vehicle. Most knights chose flight vehicles, and all were stealth trained. Despite not having a ground bridge, she was very fast and rather quickly came upon the research facility. As she circled it once, she saw no signs of any distress, or of Decepticons. In fact, the facility seemed abandoned. She was still cloaked, transformed, and landed before the facility. Stillknight stood for a moment listening. Her scanners were no longer picking up the transmission, but she confirmed from independent sets of equipment that these were the coordinates. Behind her a ground bridge opened and she turned. It was the Autobots. They were armed and had clearly heard the same message. Stillknight uncloaked and issued her friendly, calming Lunari Trill. They walked over to her and also scanned. They had the same experience with their equipment. "This doesn't feel right," RC said, narrowing her optics. "Autobots, fan out," Optimus said. They did so, and Stillknight joined them. As she walked around the right side of the facility, she saw that a portion of it was underground. Maybe that was where the attack was, and the transmissions were no longer able to penetrate the bunkers, she thought. She went to the human computer controlling the massive doors of the underground bunker that opened into the mountainside. Stillknight overrode the security codes and opened the door. She turned back, but did not see any Autobots near her, so she continued alone. After entering the large door, there was a diagonal shaft leading downward. There were emergency lights that were flickering. Walking deeper and lower into the bunker, she still did not hear anything. The diagonally vertical shaft of the bunker led to a large underground opening, like a massive open warehouse. She turned on several lights within and continued investigating. Then she felt something familiar. She turned to her left quickly, and before her stood a familiar silhouette. Stillknight could feel his spark. For a moment, she stood staring at the figure. Could it really be him? After all these years? She went to him in some disbelief. She had waited for this moment for so long. Reaching him, she bowed her head, and he did the same. They held each other's forearms with their heads touching. Then they took a step back. As they always could before, they communicated without speaking. "You're all right," she communicated. Soundwave did not respond. Behind Soundwave emerged Megatron, Knockout, Shockwave, and Starscream. Stillknight looked up curiously, watching them emerge, then heard footfalls behind her. The Autobots had also come down the vertical shaft and entered the chamber. Stillknight, seeing them, turned and fired a shield generator in front of them from her wrist. It flared to life from floor to ceiling and separated them from her and the Decepticons. Interestingly, the Decepticons had not shown any immediate hostility to Stillknight or the Autobots. Instead, they seemed very intrigued by Stillknight and Soundwave's reunion. They moved closer and surrounded the pair. The Autobots were to Stillknight's back, behind the shield generator. There had been no initial reply from Soundwave, only a subtle resonance from Soundwave's chest. He then played recordings from the investigation of the wreckage. Evacuation priority, medical personnel, Thesara, debris field, no signal, Thesara deceased, confirmed. Stillknight stood back and looked at him. And when you found them, you stayed? She asked. The Decepticons. You remained loyal to them, even after everything they destroyed? The wrath and the grief surged in her chest. Her blades pulsed bright and the armor began to hum. The audience simply watched and waited. The Autobots began to test the shield generator and discussed how they might disable it if necessary. Think it's set to a timer? RC asked the Autobots. If the Knight made it, not sure we could get through if we wanted to, Bulkhead replied. Nothing is invincible, Wheeljack said with a smile as he went for his grenade at his hip. Soundwave didn't answer, not directly. Instead, he plays back a Decepticon rallying call, something from early in the war. Order through strength, salvation through victory. Stillknight's head lowered. The pain was palpable. She shook her head. I waited for this moment. She took one step closer. For a long time, I hoped that somehow you had survived. That if you did, we might find each other again. That I could guide you away from them, Stillknight communicated. Still, Soundwave did not move. I suppose some part of me expected this, Stillknight bowed her head. Soundwave repeated the recording. Order through strength, salvation through victory. A Decepticon broadcast that was clean and efficient. Soundwave, you don't have to serve them anymore. You don't have to be their shadow, Stillknight said pleadingly. While none of the rest could hear Stillknight's communications, their body language was indicating a disagreement. The Autobots exchanged concerned looks and began to test the shield generator once more. They fired at it and at the surrounding wall, trying to discern which might fail first. Knockout shifted uneasily, remembering how fiercely Stillknight fought, and seeing the conversation was not going exactly as they had planned. Starscream took a step back and rubbed his arm that had been wounded in his last encounter with her. Come with me. Let me help you. Let me show you the path, Stillknight offered. She waited for him to respond or react. After a period of silence in which he had not moved, he played the following recording fragments. Decepticons, progress through discipline, victory inevitable. Stillknight's blades pulsed brightly and severely. They've taken everything from us. They destroyed our home. It's buried in ash, she communicated with conviction. He did not reply. She then grabbed his forearms and said, You are not beyond saving. Let me show you the way. I am here. Together, we can be as one again. Together, we can end this war. Soundwave pieced together fragments of recordings. Yes, together we can end this war, she responded, nodding. Decepticons, victory inevitable, he replayed. Stillknight released him and stood back as though he had administered an electric shock. She stared at him for several moments. After so long, she had finally found her twin brother. Now her greatest fear was confirmed. He had joined the Decepticons. Worse so, he seemed loyal to them and unwavering in his support. She then shook her head and turned to walk away. Stillknight walked toward the Autobots, hanging her head slightly. Then Soundwave played another recorded sound, from the report on her presumed death. Thesara, he played. Look out! She heard an Autobot shout. As Stillknight turned, Soundwave's tendrils emerged quickly. The cybernetic cables unspooled from Soundwave's chest like black and purple serpents. With precision, he took advantage of her shock and hit her spark casing. The Autobots watched from behind Stillknight's shield generator, horror-struck. They began shooting at the shield generator, and they tried to bring it down unsuccessfully. They increased their firepower at both the wall of the chamber and the shield itself. Stillknight could not move. She felt her limbs locked while he acted. He tethered them, and a pulse emitted from his spark to hers. Soundwave, don't, she communicated to him. But it was too late. The connection released and Stillknight fell back. The Autobots broke through the shield generator and they opened fire on the Decepticons. The Decepticons began to retreat as Soundwave opened a ground bridge. It signaled to them that their mission was over. While Bumblebee and RC went to Stillknight to help her up, the others provided cover. Wheeljack had joined them on this mission, and he went after Soundwave. Stillknight had gotten to her feet and did not arm herself. As the chaos of the battle surrounded her, no one attacked her. She watched the battle as though she were cloaked. The Autobots and Decepticons battled, and then Wheeljack reached Soundwave. Bumblebee was asking Stillknight if she was all right, as she had not moved. Stillknight watched Wheeljack engage Soundwave. After a bit of back and forth, he managed to pierce Soundwave's abdomen through with one of his two blades. When he did, Soundwave stopped fighting and looked at Stillknight. The strange reaction distracted Wheeljack, and he too looked at her. Stillknight, observing the battle, felt the piercing wound. She did not look down at it. She looked only at Soundwave. Soundwave used the distraction to throw Wheeljack off of him and tore the blade out of himself. The Decepticons finished their retreat with Knockout and Shockwave grabbing Soundwave to pull him through the ground bridge. The Autobots continued advancing to encourage their retreat. "Jackie, are you all right?" Bulkhead shouted, providing cover fire for the other wrecker as he lay on the ground. Wheeljack was still on the ground when he turned back quickly, looking at the knight. He shouted, "Stillknight!" with concern. The other Autobots had been firing into the Decepticon ground bridge and turned to look at Stillknight. They saw a critical wound to her abdomen near her chest plate. Surprised and horror-struck, they watched as the knight collapsed. The Autobot bay was dim, the glow of diagnostic panels casting soft blue light across Stillknight's unmoving form. Her side had a deep wound penetrating all the way through that had been temporarily cauterized. Her spark chamber had slow and gradual pulses. Then a low murmuring could be heard. Some familiar voices were there. At first Stillknight thought they were of Zephyron, Feltoris, and Bastion. But as the scene felt closer, she realized it was in fact Ratchet, RC, and Optimus. Ratchet stood over her, typing into the console. He looked between two flickering readouts on the console, one detailing her vitals and the other showing her spark wave interference patterns. Behind him, Wheeljack stood uneasily with his arms crossed. "I didn't know. I thought I was stopping him, not hurting her," he said, trying to convince himself. RC placed a hand on his arm and said, "You couldn't have known. None of us could." Ratchet turned, cutting in. "It wasn't your strike alone. What Soundwave did created some sort of fusion. He tethered his spark to hers, and hers to him, but it cost them both significant energy." He pointed to the monitor with overlapping spark signatures. "Split sparks are rare enough, but to forcibly reignite the twin resonance without consent, that is unheard of, and extremely dangerous." "Is it temporary?" asked Bumblebee. Ratchet thought for a moment. I'm not sure. It will be a permanent linkage if left untreated. I don't know if we can sever it." "I drove a blade into him, and then she dropped like she was the one who had been stabbed," Wheeljack said. "Because she was," Ratchet said softly. A heavy silence followed. Optimus entered quietly. "How is she?" Ratchet replied warily. "Stable, but strained. Her energon level is low, but flow is recovering. Her spark is fluttering." He motioned to the monitor again. Wheeljack shifted uncomfortably. Bulkhead, seeing this, said, "Stillknight wouldn't blame you, Jackie. You did what you thought was right." Wheeljack turned away from him and said, "Doesn't feel right." Stillknight began to focus on where she was. As she did, she stirred. Ratchet, having just checked the screen for her vital statistics, was shocked. "Stillknight," Ratchet said. "Stay still. Your wound—" Stillknight turned to look at him and the others, realizing where she was. Then she remembered why she was there. She lay her head back down and rested her optics. Her brother was a loyal Decepticon. That felt like a physical, tearing force within her chest. "Yes, that's right. You need to lie still, or you'll rupture the temporary cauterization. I need to prepare for surgery," Ratchet said, misreading her expression as regarding pain from the wound. Wheeljack went up to her side, and the others gave them some space. He seemed a little uncomfortable and was holding his right elbow with his left hand. He was hanging his head, not looking at her. Stillknight had opened her optics and noticed this. Before he could speak, she placed her hand on his forearm gently. At this, he looked at her with a soft smile. His body seemed to relax. Ratchet had stepped away, and Stillknight figured that this would be her best opportunity. She made to get up, and detached from the monitors. The alarm sounded immediately. Wheeljack, with some confusion, said, "Whoa, Knight! Hey, what are you doing?" Not wanting to harm her further, he did not succeed in pushing her down. "Stillknight, what do you think you're doing? You need to lay back down immediately," Ratchet shouted. "The doc's right, Knight. You're in pretty bad shape," Wheeljack said as he helped her stand. The others converged. Stillknight was not dissuaded and walked toward the ground bridge. "Stillknight, I mean it. I've only just stopped the bleeding. You'll cause a rupture." Ratchet was flustered and at something of a loss of what to do. The Autobots were also unsure of how to handle the situation. She was not formally within their ranks, and was free to come and go as she pleased. Optimus stepped forward as Wheeljack walked beside Stillknight and was helping hold her up, but not sure of what else to do. "Stillknight, this has been a trying day for you. At the moment, I think it is best to focus on recovery," Optimus said. Stillknight looked up at him and nodded, then pointed at the ground bridge. Optimus looked from her to the ground bridge and back. "You want to recover in your own base?" Optimus asked. Stillknight nodded. "This is serious, Stillknight. I need to perform surgery immediately. I would rather perform the surgery in my own operating theater, not one I am unfamiliar with," Ratchet said animatedly. Optimus stopped for a moment, as he watched Stillknight continue walking over to the ground bridge. Wheeljack continued to help support her as she walked. Ratchet made to stop her. Then Optimus held out his hand to him. "Optimus, really?" Ratchet said. Optimus walked over to the ground bridge and set the coordinates to Stillknight's base. "Optimus!" Ratchet said again. "Ratchet, Stillknight has different means of recovery. It is the Knight's way. She managed to use it to help Bumblebee heal much faster than expected," Optimus said. "But that won't matter if she's unable to treat herself, Optimus. She can barely remain conscious. She needs surgery," Ratchet said. Wheeljack continued assisting Stillknight through the ground bridge, and Stillknight found much more peace in her base than the shouting at the Autobot base. There was quiet and a shimmering light of the Icona in the hallway. Where do you want to set down?" Wheeljack asked. She pointed at the garden. In the garden there was a recovery bed set up with room for a bot. The Icona were already set around the perimeter. Wheeljack helped her into the bed. "Do you, need to hook up any monitors or anything?" Wheeljack asked. He took that moment to look around and saw no monitoring equipment whatsoever. This was quite literally a garden, with plants and an elevated bed. Confused, he turned back to her and received a mild shock. The plants had connected with her, emitting vine-like structures that glistened in blue and silver. Like a mist they wrapped around Stillknight, and she was quite still. Just then, Wheeljack heard the commotion from the Autobot base enter Stillknight's base. Ratchet had arrived, extremely disgruntled. "Stillknight!" Ratchet was even more flustered than before, but clearly Optimus had allowed him to bring a medical kit. "This is insane. There is no medical equipment, no sterility, no—" His voice was sharp with frustration, but at the last word he froze. Behind Ratchet was Bumblebee and Optimus. They entered to see Stillknight lying still and peaceful, the vines encircling her in a shimmering and quiet light. Ratchet watched, then walked over to her and scanned her. "She's stabilizing." He looked around at the others. "She's improving." Bumblebee nodded. "Ratchet, this is how Stillknight healed me when you were hurt," Bumblebee said. "In the name of Primus, I have studied medicine for centuries. I have never seen anything like this." Ratchet thought aloud. Wheeljack, scanning the room again, responded, "I'm not sure this is medicine, Doc." He walked around and looked at all the different little plants and how the energon pooled in the little wells. Ratchet didn't reply immediately. He began running a more thorough scan and found that her vitals had risen enough to no longer require emergency stabilization. The ambient energon dispersal from the vines were consistent and regulated. Her vitals were stable, energon levels are increasing, and spark resonance climbing. Ratchet shook his head in disbelief. This isn't just keeping her alive, it's healing her. He looked at Optimus. The plants are functioning both as stasis support and biofeedback monitors, but it's biological. I've never seen anything like this, Ratchet repeated. It's a special kind of connection she forms. She helped me to form it when she brought me here. It's like the plants are intelligent somehow, and she convinces them to help heal her, or sometimes others too. But I had to do my part, Bumblebee said. Ratchet looked at Bumblebee with an unconvinced and concerned look, then back to Stillknight and his scanning device showing her improvement. How are the plants healing her? Wheeljack asked, staring at the tendrils of light threading across Stillknight's chest. I can try to explain, Bumblebee said, motioning for them to follow him to the communications console. When I asked Stillknight, it was next to Miko who was playing her guitar. Bumblebee pulled an enlarged image of a guitar up on the screen. See the strings? Think of each string as a spark rhythm. The first string is the rhythm that allows communication with the Icona. Most knights are on the second string. You might be able to pull the second string to reach the first one if you pull it up, but when you do, it costs energy and focus. So the knights connect with the Icona through energy, focus, and practice, Bumblebee explained. He pointed at the next string down. And the trainees are like the third string. Until they improve, it's much harder for them to connect with the first string. It takes even more energy and focus. Most knights take years to form even a weak connection, Bumblebee finished. The others took the information in for a moment. Huh. I bet if that guitar had 10 strings, the dock here would be the 11th, Wheeljack muttered, smirking in Ratchet's direction. About the only thing we'd have in common, Ratchet grumbled, crossing his arms. Optimus stepped forward, studying the soft pulsing of the Icona as it wrapped gently around Stillknight's form. Curious, Optimus said. The others looked up at him. She does not seem to be on the second or third string, he said quietly. No, I'd say she is the first string, Bumblebee said. He glanced back toward Stillknight, where the plants moved in perfect rhythm with her spark. The Icona, they're not just alive, they're aware, and they respond to her without hesitation. It's like she doesn't pull the connection into place, she is the connection. Ratchet had gone back over to Stillknight, and Wheeljack followed. So, she gonna be okay, Doc? Wheeljack asked as he rubbed the back of his neck. Ratchet was still watching all the vital statistics on his scanner. He walked around the table examining Stillknight and the plants. He felt a bit helpless. Never as a physician had he felt so unhelpful to a patient in need. He continued scanning because it was the only thing he felt he really could do. With some incredulity, he began to notice that the plants were focusing on her wound, and there was a greater concentration of tendrils there. The wound was mending, not just on the surface, but also within. He shook his head with his eyebrows raised. She's out of danger, he finally said. For now, we can let her rest. On Icona, the bright blue sun crested the horizon like the opening of the optics of a great sentinel. Its light poured gently over the mountains, then spilled down into the gardens. As it did, the Icona vines stirred from their sleep, reaching for its nourishment and warmth. The air was crisp and clear, and the hum of life was gentle but present. The Lunari offered their peaceful trill, and the Icona plants responded with waves of light. At the overlook near Valtoris' garden, Zephron and Valtoris stood watching a group of acolytes perform the dawn sequence. It was a slow, martial meditation meant to align spark and body. Promising form, Zephron said, nodding toward one of the newer trainees. His spark is centered, Valtoris replied. But he still fears the blade. He has not yet made peace with the weight of it. As they watched, there was also another elder telling some trainees the story of the blade that chose a side. There once was a knight named Kaelion, sworn protector of a world caught between two warring factions, neither native, both cruel in different ways. The people suffered. Cities fell. Kaelion stood watch as knights do. He guided the lost. He shielded the weak. He did not strike. But with each cycle, the fires rose. The cities grew louder. One side, the Void Marchers, promised dominion. The other, the Sun-Forged, promised order through conquest. The people pleaded, "Pick a side," they said. "End this. You have the power." Kaelion listened, and in time he chose. He led the charge against the Void Marchers, blade drawn, armor flared. His fury was precise. Entire battalions fell in hours. He did what was never asked but always begged. The Void Marchers fell, the war ended, and the Sun Forged kept their promise. They brought order through stripping the planet bare. They harvested the core, drained the atmosphere, seized the oceans. What remained was not peace, but silence. When Kaelion returned to the Knight's temple, they saw his blade dulled, his armor dimmed. He had not broken the oath through pride. He broke it through fury. His calm was lost, not to impulse, but to righteous certainty. His blade rose not for peace, but to deliver a final outcome. He told himself it was for the people, that they had chosen the lesser evil, but in choosing it all, he became part of the greater one. For a knight who strikes in wrath may win a war, but in doing so may forfeit the world they swore to protect. Valtoris and Zephyron observed in silence as the elder recited the tale. It was a story shared with every acolyte of the order, for clarity. For all their strength, knights were never meant to be warlords. They were guardians, bound not to armies, but to the life of the world itself. The tale of Kaelion was not just a warning about rage, it was a reminder of consequence. That even a righteous strike, if guided by wrath, could unravel the very peace a knight sought to protect. A knight's oath is not forged in victory, but vigilance. To choose a side in war is to risk becoming a part of the storm. To serve the world is to weather it, blade sheathed and spark steady, until no other path remains. That is why the story endures. That is why the knights remember. Just then, a soft ripple of energy passed through the ground. As it did, the vines around the garden flared, then suddenly recoiled and dimmed all at once. Valtoris and Zephyron looked from the garden out to the mountains. A gust of wind swept past them, unnatural and fast. The Lunari broke the calm with their danger trill piercing the air. The icona all along the mountains flashed, then dimmed, retracting, and a natural darkness fell on this bioluminescent planet as the sun rose. Valtoris and Zephyron exchanged a concerned glance. Stillknight. Zephyron made his way to the meditation chamber. He knelt and entered meditation. When he did, there was nothing but an empty mist. "Stillknight?" he called out. A faint blue and silver light began to emerge from the mist. As he neared, he found a recovery bed with icona illuminating. He approached it and found Stillknight upon it, resting. "Stillknight," he said gently. He knelt by her and tried to connect with the rhythm in her spark. There he found turmoil, and he felt something else. There was another presence that Zephyron did not recognize. "Zephyron," Stillknight said softly. Zephyron looked up at her and stood. "Stillknight, how are you?" he asked. "I found him," she said weakly. Zephyron sighed. "And he was with them?" Zephyron asked. Stillknight did not respond. Zephyron could see the icona surrounding her, and he could see a wound at her side. There the icona had many tendrils connecting to her. The wound looked severe. "And this?" Zephyron asked. She remained silent. Zephyron, growing more concerned with the silence, added, "He didn't—" Stillknight shook her head. "He made the link within us more powerful. He made it so we share each other's wounds. Then, when he released me, the Autobots assumed he had attacked me. They went after him and wounded him. They wounded me as well, without intending to," Stillknight said. The words washed over Zephyron like ice. The prophecy, it was all coming to fruition. That meant Stillknight's death was near. Zephyron bowed his head, hiding his pain and emotion from her. He held his chest for a moment, feeling the weight pressing down on him like a physical force. "He tried to possess you? Control you?" Zephyron asked, breaking the silence. Stillknight said nothing at first. Then, faintly, "I think, to shield me. He believes he is guarding me. The Decepticons will not hurt me now that he has linked us, but he is unwavering in his loyalty to them. The last sentence she added even more quietly. As she said this, more iconoplants reached for her. Saffron watched this curiously. You grieve for him, he said. Stillknight closed her optics. Had I not joined the Knights, would I have been able to save him from that path? She said. Saffron let that settle, then said slowly, the sword is forged in heat. The healer must choose whether to harden or to shatter. She turned to look at him. She was unsure if he was instructing her at this moment, or saying that Soundwave had shattered after the Exodus. She gave him a searching look. Saffron met Stillknight's gaze, steady and thoughtful. Some sparks, when broken, fracture outward, wounding all around them. Others fracture inward and grow quiet. They can choose to be born again. Your brother thought he lost you then, Saffron said. It may have shattered him. Or it may have simply revealed him. He looked straight at Stillknight when he said this, and she looked straight back. She had always felt this. They had argued on Cybertron about Soundwave's inclination to join the Decepticons. Some part of her knew that he was on that path, and every part of her knew that she could not follow. Every atom of her spark knew that this was her path. Even before ever learning about the Knights, she knew she stood against the Decepticons and their ruthlessness. Their disregard for life she could not forget, nor could she forget the faces of the patients she had lost in the war. She lay back and shut her optics. Saffron reached out to her shoulder. I pictured our reunion through the eons when we were separated, but I never pictured it like this. I felt mourning. As I touched him, I knew he was gone. The brother I once knew was lost to the Decepticons. Saffron felt like he could feel this with her. He is not gone, Stillknight. Not yet. If there is still grief, there is still love, and love can reach where blades cannot, he said. Stillknight looked at the vines curling around her arm. He tethered you to protect you. This may be a way you can help guide him. You can help to share his perspective enough to adjust his understanding of things. And, when the time comes, we may be able to break that tether. If so, it is possible he will choose to stand at your side, Saffron said. He could see her growing stronger and more resolute, both physically and emotionally. The Knights teach discipline, but also understanding. If you bear this bond, do not let it consume your path. Let it teach you, and use it as an opportunity to teach him, Saffron added. Stillknight took some time to process this, and allowed her spark rhythm to calm. Somewhere in the distance, Saffron could hear the peaceful trill of the Lunari. And what of the prophecy, Saffron? Stillknight asked, growing stronger. Saffron did his best not to break her gaze. I've discussed it with Bastion. He said there is a prophecy of the war ending. There are many details he did not share with me. He simply said for me to share that your spark has yet to lead you astray. You must simply do what feels right, Saffron said. So then, I should continue supporting the Prime? Stillknight asked. Stillknight, you more than anyone is true to their oath. It is because it is not a matter of memorization to you. Instead, your own spark shares the values and goals of that oath. Most Knights must weigh whether their actions are in line with the oath. You must simply weigh whether your actions are in line with your spark, Saffron said, smiling. This was what he admired about his one-time student Stillknight. Her conviction and integrity were above reproach. Though he was the mentor in her past, and she had reached out to him for counsel, he felt that he learned much from her as well. Stillknight lay back on the vine-cradled bed. The icona continued to pulse around her slowly, responding to her spark like instruments tuning to a melody. The grief was still there, like a hollow chamber in her chest, but it no longer threatened to swallow her. In the garden of Icona, Stillknight rested. Somewhere off in the distance, she could hear a medical officer complaining about not having her in his operating theater. On Icona, the vines began to return to their customary brightness. They opened once more in response to the Lunari, emitting the peaceful trill.